Welcome back to the third and final part of Senate Hearing 104 593, which was held on Wednesday, July 17th, 1996, as you can read on the ticker below. Anyway, yeah, this is going to be the fun part because this is where the preacher types speak up. Anyway, let's let's do a brief review of what we've gone over recently. So, in part one, we had the opening statements from the members of the Senate Committee on Intelligence Oversight and the statement from Director of Central Intelligence Deutsch. In part two, we had a number of journalists speak. I particularly liked what Ted Koppel had to say. So, let's go ahead and pick up where we left off last time, which is where Chairman Specter had thanked Mr. Koppel with appreciate your wisdom, and now he wants to call up the next panel. So, right back into the transcript. Chairman Specter says, "We appreciate your wisdom. I'd like to call our next panel now. Dr. Don Argue, President of the National Association of Evangelicals, accompanied by Dr. John Orme, Executive Director of the International Foreign Mission Association, Sister Claudette Laverde, I don't know, Lavediere, President of the Maryknoll Sisters, or Maryknoll Sisters, Dr. Rodney Page, Deputy General Secretary of the World Church Services." Pause. Okay, so I am going to pause there because I've got a couple of things lined up that I want to look at. First off, I want to show you what I found on the National Association of Evangelicals over on their webpage. Uniting and faithful witness to the transformational gospel. Transformational gospel. I got discovery resources and become a member and support and all that. Anyway, you can look them up if you want to. Now, the thing that I find interesting is the name of it, because it reminds me of this other organization that I'm aware of, the Global Evangelist Alliance. And who are these people connected to? None other than Empowered 21. Yeah, yeah, these wacky people. I can get back to them another time. I wrote an article about them here a while back, and I am not afraid to address them. Oh, hang on, I gotta get a couple of tabs cleaned up here. As for the International Foreign Mission Association, I couldn't really find anything on that, although I did find the International Mission Board, a Christian mission organization aimed to serve Southern Baptists, carrying out the Great Commission. So there's the International Mission Board, and then there's International Mysteries, International Ministries, the Paris Foreign Mission Society, Office of Foreign, oh, that's probably government related. But anyway, and then let's see, the next reference over here that was up is the Maryknoll Sisters, making God's love more visible. So apparently they're a Catholic order, I'm guessing. Or they might be, I don't, I don't know. And the Maryknoll sisters believe that we are all part of of one Earth community, that all of us, regardless of race, nationality, gender, background, or personal identity, are all connected as human family with each other and with all creation. All right. Let's see. Next on the list was the World Church Services. World Church Services. So we go over to the CWS global.org webpage. And we have one goal, building a world where there is enough for all. So they're into the sustainability, fighting hunger and poverty, global development. All right, so there's that. So back to Chairman Specter. We start with Don Argue, president of the National Association of Evangelicals, a group comprised of approximately 42,500 congregations nationwide from 49 member denominations and individual congregations. We welcome you here, Dr. Argue, and look forward to your testimony. Dr. Argue. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The reason I have been asked to speak first. The National Association of Evangelicals was one of the first associations or organizations of size to speak out regarding the issue. And you have indicated already the constituency that we represent. It is important for the community to know that we have an unprecedented coalition who have signed the NAE Statement of Concern, and I would like to read that statement in brief. March 1996. It was passed at our convention in Minneapolis. In the 1970s, the Central Intelligence Agency of the United States of America disclosed it had used clergy, journalists, and academics in covert operations. In 1977, an intense campaign by religious groups and civil libertarians led to rules by the CIA which prohibited it from hiring or establishing any intelligence relationship, quote, with any U.S. clergy or missionary, whether or not ordained, who is sent out by a mission or church organization to preach, teach, heal, or proselytize, end quote. Similar rules were later adopted, barring employment of journalists and academics in covert operations overseas. In 1996, the CIA director declared that the ban on the use of journalists would be waived on in cases of, quote, unique and special threats to national security, end quote. The CIA has thus far not clarified the possibility of a clergy loophole circumventing the 1977 rules, because lifting the ban would jeopardize all missionaries, church, relief, community development, and refugee assistance workers ministering in politically sensitive areas as well as those with whom they work. We, the undersigned, and I will read that list in a moment, urge our sending agencies to avoid any relationship with or supply any information to any intelligence agency or service. Such use of missionary agents for covert activities by the CIA would be unethical and immoral. We insist the CIA close any loophole that allows for intelligence gathering, collaboration with clergy, missionaries, and aid workers, and agree not to pose as religious workers. We insist the CIA clarify and publish its policy for the protection of U.S. citizens serving in ministry abroad. I request that we, it says we request the executive branch of the U.S. government and the select committees on intelligence of the Congress to cooperate in continuing to prohibit such inappropriate collaboration. We request that, if necessary, executive orders of the President be issued and legislation be passed by Congress to correct this intolerable situation. Signed and sponsored by the National Association of Evangelicals, joined in signing by the Evangelical Fellowship of Mission Agencies, Interdenominational Foreign Missions Association, Association of Christian Schools International, Youth of the Mission, Wycliffe Bible Translators, U.S. Catholic Mission Association, Maryknoll Fathers and Brothers, Maryknoll Sisters, Office of Social Concern. The signers of this statement of concern represent in excess, conservatively speaking, over 50,000 Americans who are working as religious and relief persons around the world. I would like to turn to my colleague, Dr. John Orm, to share further, if he would, please. Chairman Spector says, Dr. Orm, welcome, and you may proceed. Statement of Dr. John Orm, Executive Director, International Foreign Mission Association. Dr. Orm. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also have a statement after which I have anecdotal experiences should the chair be so desire. Chairman Spector. We will put your full statement in the record, Dr. Orm, but you are on Dr. Argue's time. Except, I think the clock just went back to start, but proceed. Dr. Orm. Yes, I understand. 2 minutes. No one familiar with the world scene can doubt that the process of rapid social change has become the most notable feature of the latter half of the 20th century. The tremendous changes taking place have created upheaval in economic, political, and religious spheres. The interrelationship between ancient religions and political disputes, intertribal warfare, and ethnic warfare, complicated by religio-political militants, makes life more complex for today's religious worker. This is particularly problematic in Islamic countries where the worldview does not separate politics and religion. Regrettably, terrorism and hostage-taking have become everyday concerns for foreign missionary personnel and their families. It is in this context that today's religious worker must attempt to minister effectively without becoming involved in the affairs of governments. In this context, trust and confidence are indispensable in any ministry relationship. Church leaders, both in the United States and abroad, have the right to expect that their religious workers speak only in the name of God, and that mutual confidence not be tainted by intelligence gathering, be it by innocent cooperation, by being a conduit for funds, and much less by manipulation. I just want to insert a thought here. Let's see. Church leaders, both in the United States and abroad. That mutual confidence not be tainted in intelligence gathering. Speaking only in the name of God and not in the name of government. Yeah, I'm thinking like the NAR types. A lot of them speak politics a lot from the pulpit. Anyway, back to the transcript. Today, the clergy are under suspicion in many countries because of the wide publicity of CIA involvement with the clergy as reported in the mid-1970s. And this is in the congressional record of December 15th, 1975. Operation Condor, Colonia Dignidad, Richard Nixon, William Branham, Paul Schaefer. All right, enough of that loop. Back to the transcript. Since then, the film industry has dramatized the sensational side of intelligence gathering. Accurate or not, the public perception abroad of the Central Intelligence Agency is negative and prejudicial to the relationships of mutual confidence for foreign missionaries. Accurate or not, the CIA has become a symbol of intrigue, mistrust, and of American intervention. Now, this in no way indicates this in no way indicts the Central Intelligence Agency or attempts to denigrate the legitimate role of intelligence gathering within the federal government. However, the church has a separate sphere and role, which must be kept separate from the influence of the affairs of state. The state, and in this case its intelligence gathering function, should not attempt to use the church for its own purposes. Interjection. However, the church has a separate sphere and role that must be kept separate from the influence of the affairs of state. Sounds to me like he's speaking out against what has since become known as the Seven Mountains Mandate, along with the New Apostolic Reformation. Anyway, back to the transcript. The evangelical missions community, therefore, insists that the CIA publicly close any loopholes which allows for intelligence gathering, collaboration with clergy, missionaries, and aid workers in order to protect the ministry, safety, and lives of its personnel and their families. Chairman Spector. Thank you very much, Dr. Orm. We now turn to Sister Claudette Laverdiere. We'll just call her Sister Claudette. We have proceeded in alphabetical order. Sister, that's what we consider to be fairest. Sister Claudette has been a member of the Maryknoll since, well, let me just say, very experienced. Has a bachelor in education from Mary Rogers College and a master's of theology and theological studies from the Catholic Theological Union. I've learned from my wife, who is a Philadelphia councilwoman, who never listed any dates in her resumes, not to do so. I've even adopted it for myself recently, so I will apply it to you, Sister Claudette. We appreciate you being here and look forward to your testimony. Statement of Sister Claudette, President, Maryknoll Sisters Congregation. Sister Claudette. Thank you very much, Mr. Spector. Thank you, and you're welcome for this opportunity to testify. I am Sister Claudette, President of the Maryknoll Sisters Congregation, a Catholic mission religious community of more than 750 women from 21 nations around the world. We minister to and with poor people in 30 countries in Asia, Africa, Latin America, Central Pacific, and the United States. In my capacity as president of the congregation, I visit the sisters in their locales and have opportunity to see firsthand the work they do among the people and the difference they make in their lives. I myself have worked in Kenya for 22 years. Our sisters work in education, health, community development, agriculture, social work, communications, and pastoral care. We seek, in all cases, to promote the fullness of life inspired by the words of Jesus. Quote, all come that they may have life and have it to the full, end quote. The policy of the Central Intelligence Agency involving reporters, Peace Corps workers, and missionaries in intelligence gathering is of serious concern to us. The policy that allows a waiver puts missionaries like ourselves and also the people with whom we work at great risk. Just as serious, it undermines the credibility of church personnel and destroys the trust which is so essential to our ministry with poor people and oppressed peoples everywhere. Without that basis of trust, our whole ministry is seriously undermined and jeopardized. So, I join my colleagues in calling for a complete ban on loopholes that would be possible in this policy. After we've all had a chance to speak, I will also welcome questions. Thank you. Chairman Spector says, thank you very much, Sister Claudette. Now we turn to the Reverend Rodney I. Page, who is Director of the Church World Service and Witness. Reverend Page is an ordained minister in the Christian Church, Disciples of Christ, and has a very distinguished academic record from Drake and Texas Christian University. We welcome you, Dr. Page, and look forward to your testimony. Statement of Dr. Rodney Page, Deputy General Secretary, Church World Service and Witness Unit, National Council of Churches. National Council of Churches. Heard of that one before. Anyway, Dr. Page. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to appear before the committee today. I am also the Deputy General Secretary of the National Council of Churches, which is an ecumenical organization of some 33 Protestant Orthodox denominations in the United States, representing approximately 45 million people. The World Church Service and Witness Unit is one of the two program units of the Council, and within it, World Church Service operates a global relief development and refugee assistance ministry of the communions that work together through the National Council of Churches. It was founded in 1946 in partnership with local church organizations in more than 70 countries worldwide and supporting sustainable self-help development of people with which respects the environment. We meet emergency needs and address root causes of poverty and powerlessness. Within the United States, Church World Services resettles refugees, assists communities in responding to disasters. We have just recently raised money for the church burnings throughout the country. We advocate for justice in U.S. policies which relate to global issues and provide educational resources and offer opportunities for communities to join a people-to-people network of global and local caring through the participation in what is called crock walks. Because of because of our commitment to work all over the world in areas of great need, the staff and volunteers who work with the Church World Service and other religious relief and missionary organizations are often in danger. In fact, I have just returned from Southeast Asia and then Cambodia. I was in northern Cambodia in Bad Dambang, and the week after I left, there are a two-star general and his 14 aides were murdered by Pol Pot and the Khmer Rouge. Wow, that was a wild period. I remember that in my studies. I'll have to come back to that at some point. Sorry, interjection there. Continuing. We operate along the Burma-Thai border refugee camps, supplying food to those camps, and oftentimes our drivers are murdered and aid workers are taken into hostage situations. They go willingly to places where natural disaster, famine, and war cause desperate need and threaten personal security. Often, they overtake these missions in partnership or at the request of the U.S. government, in the belief that our own government will attempt to protect them if they are in danger. Consequently, it is particularly distressing to us to know that these dedicated workers may in fact be endangered by actions or suspected actions of that very government. I refer specifically to the perception that religious workers may be recruited by U.S. intelligence organizations to serve as informants. We understand the Central Intelligence Agency has for many years operated under a general ban on the use of religious workers as informants. We also know that the CIA rules allow waiving this ban under special circumstances. It is the existence of this waiver authority that places religious workers in jeopardy. Whether or not the waiver authority is exercised by the CIA, the possibility that it could creates the perception that it is or will be. The widely publicized recommendation made this spring by the Task Force on the Council on Foreign Relations that the ban on use of religious workers be reviewed only increased our concern about this issue. At that time, the heads of this member communions of the National Council of Churches wrote to CIA Director John Deutsch that missionaries are often in position to observe developments in society that need to be brought to the public's attention. We know, for example, that church workers are the first to report epidemic of starvation in Liberia a few years ago. Such reporting done publicly is a service to the whole community. However, to ask church workers to observe in clandestine fashion and report secretly on what they see and hear is often to endanger their lives. The mere public perception that a few U.S. missionaries and religious workers might be gathering information secretly for the government undermines the trust of all workers that need to develop within the communities they serve in order to carry out their ministries. Because they believe so strongly that it is inappropriate for religious workers to gather this information for the government, many of our communions have adopted policies requiring our personnel to refrain from contact with the government. May I just close by saying that we still believe that this is the right approach to take to this action and this issue. A complete ban on the CIA and other intelligence gathering organizations to use religious workers. As long as there is any reason to suspect that religious workers may be agents of the United States government, the lives and safety of these servants of public good are in jeopardy. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Spector. Thank you very much, Dr. Page. We certainly do commend the activities of your organization worldwide, being subjected to the risks which you have just spoken about. Your Maryknoll sisters as well, Sister Claudette, and your extensive service, 22 years in Kenya, Sister Claudette, yes. Chairman Spector, it is very impressive. I had an opportunity to visit Kenya 2 years ago. Sister Claudette, permit me to start with a question of you as to the imminence, the kind of danger that you feel your order runs into as you perform your services around the world. Do you think that, have you found that there are concerns or suspicions that the Marinol sisters might be agents for the CIA? Sister Claudette. Not directly, sir. That's why I spoke mostly to the effect of undermining the trust in our relationship with the people. My colleagues have mentioned that the seed of distrust is already planted. We make consistent efforts to counter it by our lives. Chairman Specter, where do the seeds of distrust originate? If you can help us with that question. Sister Claudette, I think it came out in 1977 at the time the policy was stated. At that time, the religious community mounted a concerted effort to make sure that this would not go unchallenged. Chairman Specter. Oops. And what was your success? And what has your success been since 1977 with dispelling that concern? Sister Claudette. Consistently, we try to be faithful to our own mandate of speaking in the name of God. As Mr. John Orm said, to be consistent in our own efforts and to an approach to the people so as to dispel any suspicion. But that suspicion may still be there, just because many of us are from the United States. Chairman Specter. Dr. Page, in articulating the work of your group worldwide, Church, World Service, and Witness, have you seen specific cases where your representatives have come under suspicion of being CIA agents? Dr. Page. I could point to recent experiences of my visit just to Southeast Asia recently, and that there is a suspicion that sometimes religious workers are indeed recruited and that some of our religious workers have been taken into captivity as hostages. That happened in Cambodia to a British relief worker. Some of the drivers of our trucks have been that have been taking rice into refugees. There's about 95,000 refugees living along the Thai-Burma border because of the continuing civil war in Burma. Some of those drivers have been murdered, with the understanding by some people that they are indeed agents of the U.S. government. We have taken every precaution that we possibly can to dispel in any way, shape, or form that we collaborate with the government in the passing on of information. That is not to say, Mr. Chairman, that some people, religious workers, might volunteer on their own behalf to give information. But we in no way, shape, or form encourage our workers or allow our workers to be agents of the government. Chairman Specter. Dr. Argue, Dr. Orm, would it be sufficient in your view to have a rule where only the president might have a waiver, that under the strict finding, which requires it be in writing with the preceding deliberation, and then only in matters of national security, would that be an acceptable exception in your view? Dr. Orm. Dr. Orm. One of the problems we deal with, Mr. Chairman, is the atmosphere of suspicion and the politicization of the atmosphere virtually around the world. My experience is 14 years living in Guatemala, and so throughout Latin America, there is a politicized effect. On the one level, it is certainly understandable if there were an end of the world scenario, mass destruction, massive terrorism, where the president would certainly intervene on the behalf of national interests. At the same time, we must do all that we can at this point, and this is why we would require and ask for, rather, a public blanket statement that would clarify things to some degree for those in other countries. This will not be done even through one statement. It is going to take years to gain again the trust of those who Chairman Specter cuts in. But you would like for an absolute prohibition, even without a limited exception for the president on his determination? Dr. Orm responds, I would prefer that. However, I understand in cases of national security, there may be some end of the world type scenarios that we can't really prognosticate right now. We can't really predict what Chairman Specter cuts in again. So, would you accept that kind of exception? Dr. Orm, it would not be my first preference. Chairman Specter, okay. Well, your amber light is on, so I will now turn to your distinguished colleague, Senator Robb. Or our distinguished colleague, Senator Robb. Senator Robb says, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have just one question. I pose the question as one who has long been skeptical of any utilization of either news gathering or clerical participation in intelligence operations. One who understands the need for a variety of different assets that the intelligence community can draw upon, but who believes that there should be clear exemptions. But let me raise this one question and pose it to Dr. Page, if I may. Although I would be interested in your comments. Is there a distinction to be drawn between clergy, Dr. Page, and the term you used, religious workers? Right, Dr. Page says. So hold up a minute. Wait. Is there a distinction to be drawn between clergy, Dr. Page, and the term you used, religious workers? I might have to. Okay, so I got questions in reference to Scientology on this one because they call their Sea Org members ecumenical volunteers, classing them as religious workers. Anyway, okay, so moving on. Senator Robb says, at some point, we have a problem of scope and who is included and who is excluded. If I may just suggest an analogous situation that might be sufficiently parallel. In the field of tax exemptions for charitable organizations, we permit those organizations to be tax exempt for income that is derived in the same manner that a non-tax exempt organization might. The situation is not entirely parallel, but here you have a problem of definition. Who would be included in the blanket immunity? Whether it would be only someone who has ordained or somehow formally given the charge of a religious organization, or also apply to those who might be volunteers, might be friends, or might be paid employees who drive trucks or other tasks of that nature. Would you care to discuss where you think that a line might be drawn, if you believe a line indeed would be appropriate? Dr. Page says, I am one that probably would not draw a line, Senator. I appreciate the question very much, because the minority of our workers around the world, as I say, we operate in some 70 different countries, not only in Southeast Asia, but Asia, Africa, Latin America, Central America, and so forth. The majority of our workers are not ordained, When we say religious workers, we refer to all paid workers under the employ of the National Council of the Churches of Christ in the USA. I would say that we would want a ban on all what we consider to be religious workers, those in our employment. Senator Rob. But let me just ask you, if you had someone you hired to perform services that did not directly affect the mission that you were performing, to do administrative or cooking or other activities, would you find a distinction there that would merit additional attention? Dr. Page. I appreciate the question and I would draw no line. I would want those people also exempt from being CIA informants or informants on behalf, gathering of intelligence on behalf of intelligence gathering agencies. I think that this preserves the integrity of all our workers who are in our employee. Because whether they are a truck driver or a cook or a person that is working in other kinds of capacities other than directly in development work, they are the people that we work with and deserve our protection and deserve the protection of our integrity. Senator Robb says, I hear you. I'm not sure I agree with that, even as one sympathetic to the need for some exclusion from permissible intelligence activity. Dr. Page says, I understand that, Senator. Maybe, sister, you would like to? Senator Robb, I was going to say that are there any others who might have a comment on that question of where you can see legitimate distinction if you accept the premise of my question that there has to be some way of limiting the kind of exclusion that might otherwise preclude intelligence gathering activities from dealing with virtually anyone. Sister Claudette says, I assume you're speaking of American citizens? Senator Robb says, I can address it either way. It could be interpreted, if it were broadly enough applied, to give anyone who has employed locally to give anyone who was employed locally to assist our endeavors the same blanket immunity that has been requested for U.S. clergy and others. Sister Claudette says, I agree with Dr. Page that there be no lines drawn to distinguish between those who are associated with the mission and ourselves. Locally employed people are also associated with the religious purpose of that mission and are also trusted on the same basis as we are. Anyone associated with that mission having a dual role of church worker and intelligence gatherer would become very mistrusted. Then, associated with us, we would also be mistrusted. I would not agree to a line of distinction between these workers and ourselves. Senator Robb says, I understand your point of view. Dr. Argue chimes in. I would quote from a letter from Senator Hatfield sent to Director Deutsch, where he makes the statement that I would say in response to your question. The suspicion created by CIA involvement with even one overseas member of U.S.-based religious organizations puts the welfare of all in jeopardy. Therefore, allowing a waiver of this policy is tantamount to declaring no policy at all. Senator Robb, your positions are clear. You can understand the dilemma that we might face in terms of how broad an application of such a waiver or exemption might be. But thank you for your testimony. Mr. Chairman, I thank you. Chairman Specter. Thank you very much, Senator Robb. Thank you very much, Sister Claudette, Dr. Argue, Dr. Orm, Dr. Page. For those who expressed some concern about the public hearings in this matter, the testimony today, for any of those who might be watching around the world who might suspect journalists or church workers or Peace Corps workers to be operatives of the CIA, might well be dissuaded from Director Deutsch's testimony that it hasn't been done during his 14 months, and from the collateral information that it is very, very rare occurrence, if ever, and for the very strong statements made about an American point of view against it. And certainly this is a matter which has been in the public domain with some emphasis since the report earlier this year by the Council on Foreign Relations on the future of U.S. intelligence, and the passage of the U.S. House of Representatives of legislation on the subject, 417-6, and a matter which is squarely before the Senate, and a matter within the purview of the Intelligence Committee to take a look at what the CIA is doing, to make an evaluation of it and consider whether there ought to be legislation on the subject. So, this is not a matter that we have made any unique disclosures on today. To the extent that others may be looking, if they thought every churchgoer or journalist or Peace Corps operative was a CIA secret agent, they would get a very, very different view from what we have heard here today. But we commend you on what you are doing worldwide, the Mary Null missioners, and with the religious organizations, and we will do our best to protect our interests and our activities. You made reference to the letter from Senator Hatfield and his letter from February 28, 1996, strongly opposing the use of churchgoers, will be made a part of the record. I'm going to go ahead and read it real quick. U.S. Senate, Washington, D.C., February 28, 1996. Honorable John Deutsch, Director, Central Intelligence Agency, Washington, D.C. Dear Mr. Director, it is with great disappointment and concern that I note recent reports regarding the possible relaxation of Central Intelligence Agency's regulation prohibiting the use of American clergy or missionaries abroad. It is my firm belief that this practice tarnishes the image of the United States, prostitutes the church, and violates the First Amendment's separation of church and state. Your pronouncements that the regulation is subject to waiver, as well as a recent panel's recommendation to loosen the regulations, are very disturbing to hear. As you know, the internal regulation prohibiting the use of clergy and missionaries abroad was issued in 1976, following a personal exchange between myself and then Director George Bush. In return for Director Bush's assurance, I withdrew legislation which would have created a statutory prohibition against federal intelligence agency involvement with members of the clergy and missionaries. I do not recall it being conveyed to me at any time that the new regulation could later be waived at the discretion of a particular director or deputy director. When we allow the CIA or any other government intelligence agency to use our missionaries to perform political intelligence operations, we prevent the church's mission and bring discredit upon the foreign policies and credibility of the United States. Moreover, the suspicion created by CIA involvement with even one overseas member of U.S.-based religious organizations puts the welfare of all missionaries in jeopardy. Therefore, allowing a waiver of this policy is tantamount to declaring no policy at all. While I appreciate your attempt to clarify that these activities would be initiated and approved only in extraordinary situations. I again have to reiterate my strong opposition to this practice under any circumstances. It is my hope that you will reaffirm the CIA's regulation prohibiting these activities and clarify that waivers will not be given in the case of members of clergy or missionaries. Thank you for your personal attention to this matter. Sincerely, Mark O. Hatfield, U.S. Senator. Chairman Spector. So, we thank you, and that concludes the hearing. Sister Claudette, thank you. Dr. Orm, thank you. Dr. Page, thank you. Dr. Argue, thank you. Thereupon, at 12:15 p.m., the hearing was concluded. So, if you go over to my community tab, or if you're seeing this on Rumble or BitChute, the document source link will be in the description. On YouTube, it's in my community tab. I'll see what I can do about putting a link to that particular post, or I'll figure something out. Actually, hang on real quick. Let's just do it this way. Let's go here to Yankee Tango, and we'll go to my channel, and we'll go to my community tab, and right here's the link for the article. It's also attached to the comment that's on this thumbnail here. So I want to thank everybody for hanging out till the end. This concludes Senate Hearing 104-593 from Wednesday, July 17th, 1996. There's going to be some of this information that I'm going to end up referring back to. I got a couple of clips in here I'm going to be posting up as standalones. Anyway, thanks for coming and hanging out, and I hope you learned as much about this stuff as I did. Anyway, until I get the next video developed and posted, I hope y'all have a blessed life.
These are our newly arrived surgeons, Dr. Sturbridge and Greenbaum. Doctor. And doctor.